Change is not always easy, is it? It's only natural for us to be comfortable with what already is. I can remember as a kid dressing myself for the first few times to go out somewhere. I always refused to wear jeans, so my go-to was, you might have guessed it, jogging pants. I can remember coming down the stairs and my mom telling me that that wasn't appropriate to wear to church or to a funeral or wedding or graduation. And then those dreaded words would come out of her mouth. Christopher, you need to change. And anytime she used my full name, Christopher, you need to change, it was kind of a serious moment. And I would just look down at myself and then look back at her. I just kind of check myself out, look back at her, and I would say, what's wrong with what I'm wearing? What's wrong with this? And then she would say, it looks horrible. And then I would proceed to argue with my mom on how I didn't need to change. And really the argument didn't come because I didn't, or that I liked or loved what I was wearing. It came because I didn't want to take the time to change. Why are we like that? Why do we resist change so much? Especially when we know it's good for us, or maybe even better for us. Well, in this case, I feel like it had a lot to do with me just being a lazy kid. My mindset was very immature. And to be honest with you, my approach was just to be as comfortable as possible. Sometimes we carry that over into adulthood, don't we? But as you know, comfort and change don't typically go together. But my resistance to change was because I already had clothes on and I didn't want to put forth the extra effort it would take to change. And to be honest, I don't feel like it's much more complicated than that when we face change as adults. The reason that we resist change is because of immaturity. It's because of being lazy, or just because we want to be comfortable. But there are times when something gets stirred up inside of us and it begins to push us towards change. Even when we're resisting it, we know it's time for it, right? So if we're smart, if we really think through it, we should be sensitive to that stirring that kind of wells up inside of us. Because even though it may be uncomfortable, God may be gearing you up, maybe gearing me up, not just for the destination he wants to take us to, but for the journey he wants to take us on. And when you get nervous about what could be, just remember how Isaiah worded God's words in Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 through 9. He said it this way, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts." This is God speaking. "Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." I feel like that God had laid this series on my heart because there's going to be some calling out that is about to take place. I've spoken to so many people that have an undescribable stirring, even discomfort kind of welling up inside of them. This stirring that comes out of us is often uncomfortable. And that stirring often comes with feelings of nervousness, fear, excitement, and sometimes even just resistance. But if God is calling you out and pointing you in a new direction, we don't need to be like I was when I was a little kid arguing about wanting to change my clothes. We need to understand that there is a bigger story being written, and we should be grateful that we have an important part to play in it. The stirring to change typically starts with a small thought or an idea that comes in our heads, or just maybe even something that we see. That's what happened to Moses in Exodus chapter 3. Listen to what happened to him. Now Moses was keeping the flocks of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him, you've heard this before, right? In a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, "I will turn aside to see this great sight." That's huge. "Why the bush is not burned." He was keeping the flock of his father, or his father-in-law, aka he was kind of doing his daily job, his job that he would do every day, when he saw a bush that was burning, but it wasn't burned. In other words, God was getting his attention. I wonder what would have to take place to get your attention right now, to get my attention. There are no doubt some things you're going through, and God is trying to get your attention through those things. There are no doubt there's some things you're dealing with, and God's trying to get your attention right now. He's wanting to change your trajectory so that you will end up where he wants you to be. Here's a question. Are you willing to turn aside and see the burning bush that he's placed in your life to get your attention? This weekend, as we celebrate the independence of our country and the change that had to take place for that to happen, think about what God is trying to liberate you from, why he's trying to get your attention and to change your trajectory. Is it pain, anxiety, fear, or addiction? Maybe your job or your location, an unhealthy relationship that he's trying to steer you away from. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe he's trying to steer you into companionship. Maybe it's financial stress that he's trying to steer you away from too. Whatever it may be, don't mistake comfort as God's will. He often calls us to sacrifice comfort for progress. So as we step into this series of change, take this week and pinpoint what God is stirring up in your heart, and then join us back here in person and online next Sunday, because we're going to dive into this idea of change and where God is steering us. Have a happy 4th